I am on an adventure to master all of my favorite childhood games with RetroAchievements, a website that adds community-made achievements to your favorite old games, along with things like set tracking and leaderboards. Need I say more? This time, I'm going to be playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and I'm no stranger to this game. It was actually one of the first games I ever played as a kid on this SEGA plug-and-play console, so it's a game I hold close to my heart. This set has 32 achievements that range from beating each of the game's zones without level select, to getting perfect ring bonuses in some levels, to more fun challenges like getting all the Chaos Emeralds in Emerald Hill Zone or making it to Chemical Plant without pressing left. But this is one of the hardest sets I've ever encountered because of a few pretty insane achievements, like beating the game without using spindash or completing the entire thing without a single death. So strap in because we're in for a tough one. By the way, I'm Pajamajohn and I love retro games and achievement hunting. So if you're like me and want to follow my quest to revisit and master my favorite games from my childhood, drop a like and subscription because it really helps the channel out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, dump all your hype as well because it helps the video get pushed a bit more. Alright, enough monologuing, let's start up Sonic 2. Here's how I'm going to tackle this set. We're going to start off in Emerald Hill Zone and try to get the achievement for getting all of the Chaos Emeralds within this zone's 2 acts. After a couple of false starts, which was an hour of me resetting because I was getting a little frustrated at losing in special zones, I was able to take a really specific path that let me hit all 3 checkpoints in Act 1 with 50 or more rings, opening up the special zones. The way that these special zones work is pretty interesting compared to the first game, which I have already covered on this show. We are in a half pipe and are prompted to get a certain number of rings before the next section of the level, in this case 40. I haven't mentioned this, but this is the game that introduces Sonic's sidekick, Tails. And normally throughout the game, Tails is just kind of there and doesn't do too much. In the special zones though, he is a menace and I don't like him. This starts off pretty easy for now, but rings are hanging out all around this area and we need to collect them. I got 54 in this first part, and in the second section we run into these bombs for the first time. They're the only obstacle in the special zones. If we get hit by them, we lose rings. Like I said though, this first special zone is pretty easy and I was able to grab the light blue Chaos Emerald. I really like the shade of blue, by the way, it's very pretty. Once booted out, we're back to 0 rings, so we have to scrounge up another 50 to go into the second one, which like the first one isn't all too bad, just adding a few more bombs. Either way, we get the purple emerald and can run around for 50 rings again to get into the third special zone. I know this video is pretty heavily loaded with special zones early on. Anyway, third and last checkpoint in the stage is on the higher path leading to the top of this loop. Not too much to say here. Once out again, I made it to the end of the level and went straight into Act 2. Unlike the first game, most of the zones only have 2 acts instead of 3. Not sure why they made that decision, but they did. Anyway, another checkpoint is hiding high up in the sky here, and we're on to the 4th Chaos Emerald area already. Here we sway back and forth between 2 sides to rack up as many rings as we can in the first section so that the rest is easy, and we got the pink emerald. The next checkpoint is actually really close to the first one, so I had to backtrack and get rings we already collected since they get to spawn back in. Then we went into the special zone. Like I said, I had numerous false starts, and that's because this special zone stage is a real leap in difficulty. Ring clusters aren't in obvious spots, and we gotta go around this giant loop as well. This time though, I got through, and it was basically straight into the next emerald. We already got 5 of the 7, so hopefully we can get these last 2 easily, unlocking one of the hardest achievements in the set. Unfortunately though, this is the first special zone stage where you can really notice how Tails kinda hinders your ability to collect rings efficiently. He lags behind Sonic and there's a delay to his jump for some reason, and that can pretty often get him hit, losing whatever rings he collected. Of course, Tails' rings are kinda just quote-unquote bonus rings, but having him wreak havoc around the stage is just distracting. Unfortunately, we failed, but I decided to just keep pressing forward. Already towards the end of the act, we are faced with our first fight against Robotnik in the Egg Drillster. A few hits, he collapses, and we free some critters from their capsule. For making it into Chemical Plant, we are rewarded with our first achievement. Our goal in this playthrough at this point is of course to beat the game, but I also want to try and get the 7 emeralds and see how far into the game I can get Deathless. I went through the upper path of Chemical Plant Act 1 and made it through in 1 minute and 10 seconds. With Act 2, I also just kind of foraged forward. Something that really sets Sonic 2 from Sonic 1 is the real sense of speed you get in some of these levels, and Chemical Plant really showcases that with these huge ramps. Eventually though, I made it into another special zone, and since this one was a little more fresh in my memory, I was able to be pretty efficient with the ring grabbing towards the start. Unfortunately though, Tails got hit 1 too many times and I missed the Chaos Emerald by just 2 rings. I got through the infamous water section barely touching any water, which was pretty sweet, and I made it over over to Robotnik once again. This time we just hang out around towards the center off of the flipping panels and get hits in as much as we can, and we are already into Aquatic Ruin Zone. What I like in Aquatic Ruins compared to the areas like Labyrinth Zone in Sonic 1, sorry that I keep comparing the games by the way, it's kind of hard not to when I made retrospective videos on them a few years back. But anyway, what I like here is that if you're skilled enough to take the top path, you never have to go into the water, which there will be an achievement for that later, so we'll be back. In Act 2, I found myself around the middle path for the most part, going in and out of shallow water, and I eventually made it into this world's Robotnik fight, where this time he has a huge hammer. Staying on top of the pillars makes this really easy. I did fall down a couple times, but I was done with this world in no time. Gamble time! The Sonic gambling trend continues with Casino Night Zone. This world's best gimmick is the slot machines that you can go to test your luck at a jackpot, or in my case, losing rings to Robotnik. I've always been fond of this zone because of the huge half pipes riddled around, as well as the pinball mechanics. They're just fun to play around with. In Act 2, I really decided to test my luck and try for a few minutes to try and get a jackpot at this slot here. Racking up some lives from rings, I eventually did hit that jackpot for an achievement. Because of all these rings, when I got to a checkpoint, I could get another crack at this special zone, and I did crack it. It being the code. All I had to do was memorize the back and forth pattern and recognize that I needed a soft touch to get around these loops and that I should just pretend that Tails isn't there. I eventually solved this special zone and got the 6th out of 7 emeralds. Pretty quickly from there, I made it to the boss of this zone, Egg Catchman, as I guess they call him. I would just spin dash up a wall and get a hit in and repeat. Things got close though, and I was down to just 1 ring at the end of this. Thankfully, I made it through though. Into Hilltop Zone. I remember this being the zone I would usually get stuck in as a kid. I have a vivid memory of going to my grandparents with my plug and play and making it here before getting a game over. I must have been like 5 at the time. Back then it was tough, but these days it's honestly a cakewalk to get through the zone. I do want to mention though, I think this is my favorite level theme in the game. The lava hills is a really cool idea. In Act 2, which will become a level I despise later, I took the bottom path through this rising lava section. Eventually I made it to the boss where I ended up doing something kind of special. When Robotnik popped his head out of the lava, I juggled myself on his head 8 times before he left to get the achievement, The Floor is Lava, for beating a boss without touching the ground. And of course an achievement for making it into Mystic Cave Zone. I do also have memories of being a kid in this stage, playing along with my dad. I think that since he was, not 5 years old, with his help we were able to get over to this zone. Early on I got a chance to try out the final special zone, and things get pretty hectic. It's another one where we need to jump from side to side and just kinda need to know where the rings are. I failed. But no matter, I just kept trudging through the game's pretty confusing caverns. I made it through Act 1 no problem at all, and in Act 2 I got another chance to get the 7th Chaos Emerald. This time I knew the patterns a bit better, so I was able to make it to the final portion with 196 rings. Only needed to get 14 more in the final area. Here, rings are scattered around like crazy. Then we get an onslaught of bombs, repeat a few times, and I finished off with 238 rings, getting the final Chaos Emerald for an achievement. Unlike in Sonic 1, where getting the Chaos Emerald just gets you the true ending, in this game it also has a use. Now that we have all of them, if we collect 50 rings then jump, we transform into Super Sonic. Now, Super Sonic is busted and amazing, but I do have some gripes with the way he gets activated. So, the SEGA Genesis controller has 3, count them, 3 buttons. Guess what they all do? Well, A is jump, and B, well, that's also jump. Surely C does something else, right? Nope, it's jump again. So for whatever reason, transforming into Super Sonic isn't mapped to a specific button press, it's just if you jump, you get turned into Super Sonic, which I don't always want to do. Maybe I want to save him for a boss. Nope, we turn into him whenever we have to jump next. Could have been mapped to a button, but no. Anyway, we are Super Sonic and we make it to the next boss here. I mean, in Super Mode, this boss is just a joke. We just jump into him 8 times and win. Into Oil Ocean. This is probably my least favorite zone of the game. It kind of just reminds me of real life, to be honest, and I like more fantastical settings. Thankfully, we have Super Sonic though to just carry us through the acts. Like, seriously, I can just turn my brain off and virtually nothing can hit me. Just go to the end of the level and that's all I gotta do. Act 2 was a little harder because I actually had to think about my routing for 0.1 second, but really this was a breeze. Well, at least for me. Not for Sonic because this sun looks like it's really beaming down on him. You get the joke, Breeze? The boss fight as Super Sonic is a big old nothing burger, and we are into the final full zone of the game, Metropolis Zone. I think this is the furthest I ever made it as a small child. I mean, I've of course beat the game since then, but this is a retro video, let's reminisce a little bit. As with the rest of the zone since I got Super Sonic, which is only the end of Mystic Cave and Oil Ocean, I turned into Super Sonic, which made everything in the act completely trivial. Got to Act 2, where I got stuck in this section for far longer than I'd like to admit, then eventually got the 50 rings, and destroyed the rest of the level. For some reason, Metropolis Zone is the only zone in the game with 3 acts, and I don't know why, but it does. If I had to guess, maybe it's a fake out, like, oh wow, this world is industrial and has 3 acts? Oh, this must be the end. Well, now that I think about it, actually, yeah, that probably was the idea. Because, I mean, this boss also does feel kinda endgamey. That is if you don't have Supersonic to just destroy it. But we aren't done. We are now in this set piece of a stage called Sky Chase Zone, where we are trying to track down a giant airship by flying in Tails' plane. We control Sonic and Tails make sure we don't fall off the plane. It's pretty unique and feels pretty grand, especially when you start to fly by the actual airship. That being said, it's not bad at all. Once done with that, we are in Winged Fortress Zone. And you may have noticed, I've not mentioned a death yet, which means we are in the very end game here, Deathless. And it's a huge weight off of my shoulders because I started mastering this game on a Thursday, and this video needs to come out on Sunday, so I need all the time I can get for scripting and editing. Anyway, I was taking this so seriously that I paused the game to watch someone play through the level to make sure I didn't get tricked by anything along the way, because it's been a bit since I've made it this far in the game. I quickly got 50 rings to become Super Sonic, but this time I actually didn't want to be him because we've got some really tight platforming coming up, and Super Sonic is slippy. So I just waited out the timer to become regular Sonic again and moved forward. Eventually made it past the wind section, got turned into Super Sonic again where I waited out the timer, got through this section here with the retracting platforms, and panicked as I was sent across this gap. All was good though. I got 50 rings for a 3rd time, but this time I actually utilized Super Sonic to take out this otherwise really hard boss. So bless up for that. With his airship destroyed, Robotnik retreats into an actual rocket ship into space, and we chase him to Final Zone. Now, Final Zone. 2 bosses left, no rings, 1 Deathless Chivo we really need to get now. I watched a couple of tutorials as how to beat both of the bosses here damageless with whatever strat they came up with. Once I thought I had it down, I went in to fight Mecha Sonic. 3 bounces to the head off the start. Run to the other side of the stage to not get hit. Jump on for some more damage. I made it to the Final Zone. An hour and a half of playing just to die here. That's a pretty bad setback. But still, we need to beat the game anyway. And at least this is practice for when we go for this Deathless Chivo again down the line, so I can't complain that much. After messing up a few more times on Mecha Sonic, I got the safe cycle on him down. Then moved on to the true final boss, the Death Egg Robot. He can be pretty tough if you don't know what to do, and it's been a while for me, so I didn't really have this down. What you want to do is hit Robotnik during his walk cycle when his claws are flush with the rest of the robot, which is really tight timing. You only have a few frames to get hits in here, but once you do know the timing, it's lenient enough. I spent some time here learning that timing, then let myself progress onto the second phase of the boss, where Robotnik flies into the sky and tries to crush you. When he hits the ground, we can get a hit in, then run to the other side of the stage so we don't get hit by his rocket arms. If we have him land here on the right side of the stage, then make it all the way to the left, his arms can't reach us, making this not so bad. After that, he goes into the sky once again to stomp, hit here, and this time he goes back into the walk cycle. And from there, the fight just repeats. On one of my last few attempts here before game over, I actually made it through the fight with the Death Egg Robot. From here, the rocket ship explodes, and as we leave, I actually got a rare achievement for completing Death Egg in under 2 minutes. Kind of a nice bonus. Here we get the true ending of the game, and credits roll. The game might be done, but as achievement hunters, we still have another 16 achievements to grab, and some of them are a doozy. But before that, I need to hand this off to Caveman John. Look, red subscribe button, hit. If you want, tell YouTube you like me. Subscribe and like video. Also, memberships. Member get extra video a week on channel and help support me, broke. Back to video. All right, here's how things are gonna go. I'm gonna now try and beat the game as Tails, but that's not all. While doing so, I'm gonna try and beat the game without using the spin dash as an achievement, as well as try again on Deathless because I got pretty close that last time. From there, I'm gonna tackle the ring-related achievements, and then I'm gonna reassess what we have after that. To activate the game as Tails only, all we need to do is go into the options, then press start, and now we're Tails. The no spin dash does add a little extra layer of challenge into the game, but nothing too insane. Since Tails can't become super, by the way, I'm not going to be getting any emeralds throughout this run, and I'm really only going to take note of times where having no spin dash posed a little bit of a challenge. Something strange did happen early on though. For some reason, when I beat Emerald Hill Act 1, the achievement for getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds in Emerald Hill got activated. I'm not going to count that at the moment and make that a priority after this Tails run. Also, just to note, we can curl into a ball and roll, we just can't start from a standstill and use the spin dash. Essentially, we have to play as if it was Sonic 1. Tails also doesn't have the ability to fly as player 1 in this game, so we're essentially just playing as a Sonic reskin. I got through Emerald Hill and Chemical Plant without any trouble regarding the spin dash thing. There was a spot or two where I need to build up some extra speed, but nothing where I had to do anything too challenging. I unfortunately died during the Robotnik fight here in Chemical Plant, so no Deathless Chivo for me. But I kept moving forward because it's good to get the practice in rather than resetting over and over at this point. Aquatic Ruin gave me no problem, even underwater wasn't too bad. In Casino Night, there were a few places where I caught myself almost doing spin dashes out of habit. It got kind of tough during the boss fight because the way I do this fight is usually by spin dashing up the wall then jumping. Instead, I had to use regular momentum building to do so. Hilltop was a breeze. This boss battle will always be satisfying, by the way. And Mystic Cave was actually the first place where I hit a bit of a roadblock when it came to no spin dashing. For a while, I was trying to time my movement in jumps here to get around this moving rock. What are these, by the way? I've never known. I think it's a rock. I don't really know. I was here for a couple of minutes before I, just turned around and found an easier path by. That was it for any trouble here. I actually had to fight this boss legit this time though because I don't have Supersonic. It wasn't bad. Oil Ocean was back to business, but Metropolis Zone on the other hand, a lot of places for us to get stuck. First was this ramp area being guarded by a crab. He was really good at being a guardian. I didn't run into him the second time around though, so I don't know, I avoided him, I guess. Act 2 had this part here where I needed to time the perfect run into a perfect hop onto this moving platform. I got stuck here for a while, like a long while. But once I got by, I was good. And in Act 3, I fell down to these corkscrews. I just ended it all and gave it another go. I made it to Robotnik, fought his little egg dudes, which was a lot harder because no Supersonic. But I got through into Sky Chase, which was quick, and got into Wing Fortress. Now here, we are pretty much in the clear. 2 more stages left, no spin dash. So explain to me why, at the very end, I just walked into this dude and spin dashed for no reason. Like, why, man? Like, I knew this was stupid. Like, look at me after. I was just staring off into space. Well, all I can do now is finish out the game. Final zone, and we are done. At least we beat it as Tails. Now, because I have integrity, I'm going to do that 7 Emeralds Chivo that popped by accident. So, strat here is to become Sonic only, so Tails can't distract me. I was going for this a bit at the start, as we know, so I have the route down in my mind, and we have done the 7 Emeralds already, so I have a good idea of what needs to be done. But that being said, as we know, things can always go wrong. Emeralds 1 through 3 aren't too bad, so we got through those easily. Then into Act 2, Emerald 4 is pretty easy, and it wasn't until Emerald 5 that I had some consistent issues earlier. The cure to my issues with the Chaos Emeralds was just to watch a video of someone doing it before I went into each zone. So for Special Zone 5, let's do a play-by-play. First in the middle, then to the left for these rings, now loop around to the top ring cluster and back down again. Then back and forth for a bit, and we are into the second part of the zone. Now the loop section where I nailed it. Last section I flubbed up a bit, but there was a loop section that got me the rings I needed. And now we have the yellow emerald. 5 out of 7 done. Zone 6, I just had to memorize the ring orders and sway back and forth correctly. Blah, 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 blah. Emerald 6. And now the final one where, you know what? We just go left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, then left, 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 right, left, right. Those words don't mean anything to me anymore. Then scatter to the wind, and we've done it. I have officially gotten the achievement that falsely got triggered. This is when I realized that since I had Supersonic enabled, it would probably be really easy to try and get Spin Dashless done now, since, well, he's faster, and some of those pain points from earlier would be eliminated by his speed. And what the heck, maybe we'll get Deathless too. From here, I basically abused my Supersonic powers to get through Chemical Plant, Aquatic, Casino, Hilltop, Mystic Cave, Oil Ocean, Metropolis, where I got past all the hard parts. No issue. Things did get scary in the boss fight though. I know Supersonic, which meant that I had to take on this boss legit. With at one point, 1 ring, then 0 ring. But it was okay. I made it through. Sky Chase is no problem. Then I found the shortcut by jumping over the top here in Winged Fortress, which in retrospect, it was actually really risky to go this way because I actually had never done this shortcut before. But it worked out and got me to this boss fight with Supersonic activated, which let me take it out really easily. Now into Final Zone. I haven't done a spin dash nor died, so I'm gonna play it safe. I got the Mechasonic fight down easily. 3 hits, then 3 more, and 2 more, and we're done with him. There's only one more thing in my way, the Death Egg robot. And I wasn't gonna mess this up, so I'm just gonna play this really safe. Quick first hit, a risky second hit, then the third. And from here, I was just gonna get in the free hits. Each cycle, I can get 3 hits in without too much of an issue. So he hops down, I hit, I dodge his arms, he hops down again, I hit him again. And then I get 1 more before he flies back into the sky again. And eventually, were good. Both the spindashless achievement and the hardest achievement of the set worth 50 whole hardcore points. West Side Island champion for beating the game Deathless. This was going to be the biggest hurdle in completing this set, and we actually did it really easily. As for the rest of the achievements, there are still some really interesting ones I'm going to end off with. For now though, like I said, I'm going to do the 3 ring challenges. First one is in Emerald Hill Act 1, where I need to get all 226 loose rings in the stage. What's nice is that you can get hit and still pop this achievement, so we just need to keep an eye on the time and take all of the paths throughout the level. If you're going for these yourself, I would suggest opening up a map of the level just to cover your bases. This one isn't too hard. I ran around the stage by getting most of the things, but I was missing a cluster that I wasn't able to find for a while. But eventually I hit the spring, found it, and got the Chivo. Now we gotta go into Aquatic Zone, and this one gave me hell. By the way, if we enter a special code here in the options menu using the sound tester, we can get to level select just to retry this level over and over without having to play the whole game. But yeah, this one gave me hell. I did the same strat where I was going all around the stages using a map, but somehow I kept coming short by 10 or less rings. I took every possible path. I got the rings in the trees, etc. But every time, it wasn't enough. I was genuinely here for like an hour before I just suddenly got enough rings one time. I guess I was just being really careful that time around, nothing more I can say. Eventually I got to the final ring collector challenge, which is in Sky Chase Zone, and I was having a pretty similar issue where I got to the end once or twice but was coming up short on rings. As it turns out, there are 3 hidden rings in the clouds above this section here towards the end of the first area of the level. This had me messed up for about 40 minutes this time. The other issue with this stage is you also need to do it damageless, which just adds another layer of challenge. Not one of my favorite achievements, but it wasn't too bad. Now it's time to tackle the category of achievements that is the exact opposite of what I just did. This time ringless, and once again, Aquatic Ruin Zone Act 1. We got every ring, now it's time to get none. This was much easier than the one we had to do before. The secret to this is just following the correct path. What I did was take the underwater section. Hugging the left wall here made it so that you don't touch these rings, then off this ledge going a little bit to the right lands you on this bubble instead of on the ring box. The big problem really is getting through the level while being worried about your oxygen. I would say I was rushing a ton because I was worried about drowning. I had a run that almost made it to the end die because my jump button just didn't register, I guess. I think it's because I was moving from a falling platform to a regular one and I just pressed jump at a frame where my jump got eaten. But that was close to the end, so second time I made it that far, I was able to complete the level ringless. Our second and last ringless Chivo is in Casino Night Act 1. In this one, you gotta just know where to go. The correct pathing is around these rings near the flipper, jump to this ramp, up the block to the spring, around the bumpers onto the snake blocks, across the bouncy platforms, and then pray you don't run into any rings really. I got lucky and got all Eggmans in this slot I accidentally ran into towards the end. This one took me about 15 minutes to get right. Now we get into some real fun stuff for a minute before hell. So the achievement Robotnik See Stars wants us to make it to the Robotnik fight in Chemical Plant and hit him while we have an invincibility star. Now this really taught me something about the game that I didn't know. And that's one of the best things about Retro Achievements. People in the comments will be like, why do you do these fake challenges? Well, this is exactly why. It allows me to play games I've already played a ton in a brand new way. And throughout the process, I learned about things I didn't know about, like the secret pathway in Chemical Plant Act 2 that leads to an invincibility power-up right near the boss fight. And with that, another achievement. And this one is also fun. Aquatic Ruin without touching the water. Like, yeah, I know I can get through these stages without the water, but I never really commit to it that hard. If I fall in, I usually just keep going. This makes it so that I get better at the game and really learn the intricacies of the levels. I was able to get through both stages without touching water pretty easily here, and I beat Robotnik to pop this achievement. Now this one on the other hand, I have an issue with. King of the Hill is probably the achievement that frustrated me the most in this set. I mean sure, I did kinda own the achievement most people hate early on this set, but this is the one that made me lose my mind a bit, because it wouldn't be a Sonic set if I didn't lose my mind a bit, right? So in Hilltop Zone Act 2, we need to get 200 rings to get 2 1-ups, as well as 2 1-ups from the extra life capsules. The issue? Getting 200 rings is way easier said than done. I ran around for an hour and a half trying to figure out the way to get through this level. And I'm just gonna show you on this map of the stage instead of me playing it so you can really see what I was going through. So I would go up through this way around the loop, grab this coin box, then fall to this 1-up. From here, I would launch myself with the spring to this section to go down the first moving platform. After the first moving platform, what we need to do is hop down, loop around here to open up the ground so we can get back, then make our way back up the loop and back to the start of the stage. From here, we take the exact same path, except this time, go on the second lift here. Go back around to the start, this time go up and onto the extra life way, then go across this lift, up again through this tunnel, grab some rings here, spin spin dash back to the top, then fall through the ground 2 times to get to this upper path. Then back around, jump through the ground again, and then we are back to those lifts. This time go right down this lift and into the lava section where we need to get all the rings, make it out, go into the second lava section, grab the 1-up, and all the rings here and out the other side. Somehow, every time I was coming up short by 10 to 20 rings, over and over and over again for over an hour. Eventually, I decided that clearly I had to switch things up. I did that same path, except this time, after all the rings were cleaned up, I went to the upper portion of the stage through this tunnel, then around this loop twice to get these rings on top, through the lift section here, and this time I had 200 rings. Now I need to get through the underground lava lift section to get that extra life, and finally that achievement was done. That was the worst one. It was really bad. Okay, 5 achievements left, and I kept 4 Emerald Hill achievements here because they're fun. Then the last achievement I'm gonna do is a damageless Chivo, so we can end it off with actually a real challenge. So our first challenge in Emerald Hill is gonna be for making it through both acts without ever pressing left. And that may sound hard, but it's really not. The stages are set up for you to just hold right, and when you get to Robotnik, jumping on the hills moves you left if you jump off of them in the correct way, which helps you realign yourself if needed. That being said, I still messed up a couple times pressing left out of habit, but overall, not too bad at all. Now, this is another good one. Emerald Hill Act 1, no spin dash or jumping. Once again, everything is set up with ramps and the such, so with decent speed, it's pretty simple. Here and there, you need to roll through some items, but that's about the extent of the difficulty here. Now, I need to beat any stage in under 25 seconds. Of course, Emerald Hill Act 1 is the way to go. This came down to skill, but in my case, some luck. What you need to do is take the top path, get this speed shoe, then roll into this chain reaction of items and enemies, which pretty much leads you to the end. I was pretty inconsistent with the rolling part, so it took me quite a while to get down. And even when I did, I was too slow sometimes, so that was an issue as well. It came down to a good early stage, then good execution on the rollout, and then making sure to get to the end again without hitting anything. Like I said, it took a few tries, but nothing all too insane. Our last Emerald Hill Chivo is beating the entire zone without defeating any bad Nicks, which isn't too bad. Nick, if your name is Nick and you're watching, press the like button. I've already done the achievement in Sonic 1 where I had to beat all of Green Hill without defeating any enemies or collecting any rings, and that was 3 acts, not just 2. And we can get rings this time, so it was actually one of the easier achievements in the set, to be honest. A lot of these ones at the end are kind of easy, but they were fun, okay? The final achievement I need to tackle here in Sonic 2 is beating Wing Fortress Zone damageless. The stage itself isn't too bad, only taking me a couple of tries, but it was the boss fight at the end that gave me the most trouble. It's sort of hard to get a good idea of how these spike platforms are going to move. It took me a few attempts, but I started to figure it out and was actually able to get this achievement done in only 20 or so minutes. And with that, we have now mastered the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 Retro Achievement set in just 9 hours and 50 minutes and 44 seconds as well, if you care about the seconds. I have to say, I really do enjoy these Sonic sets, but I feel that they're pretty small compared to other big names on the site. A lot of Mario sets have upwards of 80 to 100 plus Chivos, and this one has only 32. I will say though, it is well balanced, and I enjoyed my time with it a lot. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe as it really helps me out. And why not check out one of these videos that are popping up on the screen now? You won't regret it. Thanks for watching Pajamajohn 2026 Supremacy. Bye now.